He had finally managed to get the contact information of the girl he liked, but in the next second, a roaring truck sped past, and the gust of wind scattered the note into the swirling snow.
That was an accident. Write that down again, please.
I can't. That was a sign. Fate's telling us to back off.
The girl had always believed in fate, and seeing the note drift away, she was convinced it was a sign from above telling them to let things end here. However, Jonathan's eyes were burning with determination, firmly believing that if fate had brought them together, it wouldn't let a simple gust of wind end their connection. So, to make Jonathan give up once and for all, and to test whether they were truly meant to be, she took out a pen and a $5 bill, signaling for Jonathan to write his contact information and address on it. Jonathan thought his sincerity had moved her, but to his surprise, she didn't even glance at the bill after taking it, instead walking straight to a nearby kiosk and using that very bill, with his information on it, to buy a pack of gum. Her actions left Jonathan stunned, completely puzzled, and he hurried after her to ask why.
If that $5 bill makes its way back into my hands, I'll be able to call you. And when you hear my voice on the other end, then you'll believe in fate, won't you?
But Jonathan didn't believe in the concept of destiny, and the chances of such coincidences felt far too small to him. Moreover, only he had left his contact information. So to make things fair, Sara reached into her bag and took out a book titled Love in the Time of Cholera. She didn't intend to give the book directly to Jonathan, but instead told him she would write her name and contact information on the inside cover and sell it to a random used bookstore. If they were truly destined to be together, Jonathan would one day find and buy that book. But Jonathan wasn't the type to leave his happiness to something as intangible as fate, believing that when it comes to love, action speaks louder than chance. Finally, Sara was moved by Jonathan's sincerity and persistence, pulling him toward the Waldorf Astoria, not to agree to be with him, but to let fate decide their future. They each took a separate elevator, and if they happened to stop on the same floor, Sara would agree to be with him.
Faith in what?
Destiny.
After saying that, she tossed Jonathan one glove from the pair she had just bought. As the elevator doors slowly closed, Jonathan was still in shock. Staring at the rows of elevator buttons, he was momentarily lost, not knowing which one to choose. Hesitating, he could only press a button at random. Little did he know, this floor happened to be the very one Sara had chosen as well. But fate would not make it so easy for them. Just as he was nervously waiting for the elevator to reach the floor, it suddenly stopped at the 14th floor. A father and son entered, and to Jonathan's surprise, the mischievous child immediately pressed every single button in the elevator. So when Sara eagerly stepped out of her elevator, she did not see Jonathan. She had no idea that Jonathan was trapped inside the elevator, unable to get out. Meanwhile, firmly believing in fate, Sara did something unusual. She decided to wait there for Jonathan. But time passed quietly, and the figure she was hoping for never appeared. A wave of disappointment welled up in Sara's heart. Perhaps this was fate's final answer for them. Just as she turned sadly toward the elevator, ready to leave, fate played yet another trick on her. The moment the elevator doors closed, Jonathan stepped out of another elevator, but it was already too late. Perhaps love sometimes requires waiting, but it also needs action. Unable to find Sara, Jonathan began frantically searching the crowd for her, but no matter how hard he looked, she was nowhere to be found. Regret and sadness flooded his heart. In his sorrow, he recalled the moment they first met. It was earlier today, in the bustling Christmas department store, when they both reached for the same pair of black gloves. After asking the staff, they learned it was the last pair in the store. Out of courtesy, Jonathan let Sara have them. To thank him, Sara invited Jonathan to share some dessert together. Sara's bright smile and graceful demeanor were like a ray of sunshine warming Jonathan's heart. Over the course of dinner, Jonathan found himself growing fond of this beautiful, kind-hearted girl. As they were about to part, Jonathan summoned his courage to ask for her contact information, but Sara only told him,
Well, if we're meant to meet again, then we'll meet again. It's just not the right time now.
After speaking, Sara gave Jonathan a light kiss on the cheek, then resolutely turned and walked away. Not getting Sara's number left, Jonathan feeling a deep sense of loss, as though something important had slipped through his fingers. He thought they would never cross paths again, but as he was about to head home in disappointment, he suddenly remembered he had left his scarf in the dessert shop. Helpless, he went back again, only to find that Sara was there as well. It turned out she had also forgotten the gloves she had just bought. As their eyes met, Sara seemed to feel that there was some kind of connection between them. So when Jonathan invited her out again, she agreed without hesitation. They then went to the ice rink together, gliding swiftly across the ice, and the cold weather did nothing to dampen the warmth burning in their hearts. They talked about poetry and philosophy, about hobbies and the little details of life. Every topic brought them new surprises, as they discovered they shared similar interests and remarkably aligned views on life. But Sara believed in fate, while Jonathan was more rational. As their conversation grew deeper, Sara couldn't resist asking him a question.
Favorite New York moment?
This one's climbing the charts.
The next second, Sara suddenly slipped and fell, injuring her arm with a deep cut. Jonathan carefully bandaged her wound, his eyes filled with worry and tenderness. Just then, Jonathan happened to notice the freckles on her arm. Sara instinctively tried to cover them, as she had always felt self-conscious about them. But Jonathan gently said, "These freckles look just like the distant and mysterious Cassiopeia constellation, because their pattern is exactly the same as the one on your arm, unique and stunningly beautiful." Looking at this humorous and considerate man before her, Sara felt a stir of emotion in her heart. So before they parted, she took the initiative to write down her phone number for Jonathan. If it hadn't been for the sudden gust from a passing truck blowing the note away, perhaps they would have already been together. But now, because of this so-called game of fate, they had quietly stepped out of each other's worlds. Time had flown by like a white horse glimpsed through a crack, and in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed without them seeing each other. Sara was now living in another city, and through a friend's introduction, she began dating Lars, a talented musician. Although Lars was well known in the industry, he never cared about Sara's thoughts or feelings. Even the engagement ring he prepared was the wrong size due to his carelessness, and without concern for Sara's discomfort, he tried to force it onto her finger. He would even spend nights drinking with his buddies, leaving Sara to walk home alone in the pouring rain. Yet as she hurried to take shelter from the rain, she happened to catch sight of a poster on the wall. In that instant, she thought of the man buried deep in her heart, because the poster was for Jonathan's favorite movie. A wave of indescribable sadness surged through her. At the same time, Jonathan had never forgotten that magical encounter, and the girl who believed in fate. Though he was now successful and, under his parents' arrangement, had a gentle and intelligent girlfriend, he still found himself stopping at used bookstores whenever he passed one, drawn to the book Love in the Time of Cholera. But every time he opened to the title page, it was always blank. His anticipation would shatter in an instant, leaving him to turn away in disappointment. It was as if fate were deliberately toying with him, because just when he resolved to forget Sara, her name seemed to follow him everywhere. At the barber shop, the stylist who trimmed his hair was named Sara. At the golf course, the chubby receptionist was also named Sara. Even more unbelievably, while waiting at a traffic light, a song casually hummed by someone nearby also contained the name Sara. It was as if everything was intentionally reminding him not to forget the girl who once made his heart race.
You're getting married in 3 days.
That's my point.
It's entirely duplicitous.
Back home, he unexpectedly found the red shopping bag that had been missing for years. Inside was the black glove Sara had once given him. His desire to find her grew stronger than ever. The next day, he hurried to the bookstore with his friend, searching for that copy of Love in the Time of Cholera. But after scouring nearly every shop in New York, the book was nowhere to be found. That night, exhausted, he came home and once again took out the black glove, reminiscing. Then, he noticed something inside the glove, a piece of paper. Pulling it out, he discovered it was the receipt from Sara's purchase at the department store, complete with her credit card number. An idea suddenly came to him, giving him a new lead in his search. He rushed to the bank where the account was registered, hoping to get her name and contact information. It wasn't easy, but after spending a large sum, he finally persuaded a bank employee to tell him the most recent transaction for that account. The payment address led to an art studio not far from the dessert shop. A few days earlier, Sara had noticed a $5 bill on the table, and in that moment, that familiar yet distant figure appeared vividly in her mind, bringing a smile to her lips. She realized she still couldn't let go of that unforgettable memory, or the man she couldn't forget. So, to avoid leaving regrets in life, she resolutely chose to break up with her fiancé. She and her best friend Eve embarked on a journey to New York. During their search for fate, Eve was drawn to a wallet, and they bought 2 identical ones. Just like that, the 2 young people who hadn't seen each other for years simultaneously began searching for each other's figures in the vast sea of people. She went to the department store where they first met, to the ice rink they once visited, and even to the hotel elevators that had once separated them, but found nothing. Later, Sara and Eve stopped by the dessert shop, where Sara suddenly felt a pang of doubt, unsure if her decision had been right, but Eve comforted her. Life is not a scripted play. It must return to reality. With Eve's persuasion, Sara finally decided to give up searching for Jonathan, but she was completely unaware that the moment after she turned and left, Eve picked up the $5 bill the server gave back as change. And that was precisely the same $5 bill Jonathan had written his address and contact information on years before. Even more unexpectedly, just as they got into their car to leave, Jonathan and Dean appeared right behind them. And so, years later, they once again narrowly missed each other. As Sara and Eve were about to return to their hotel for their last night, Eve suddenly ran into a college classmate at the elevator. She was about to get married and warmly invited them to attend her engagement party the next day. Eve couldn't refuse, but Sara had no interest and politely declined. What Sara didn't know was that Eve's college friend was actually the fiancé of the man she had been desperately searching for. Meanwhile, after Jonathan's own fruitless search, he began to accept what fate had arranged. Perhaps Sara had already forgotten him, or perhaps she had already married someone else. And so, Jonathan began to accept his parents' arrangement and got engaged to Hallie. Looking at the smiling faces of family and friends, Jonathan simply couldn't feel happy. What he didn't expect was that after the engagement, Hallie gave him a carefully prepared gift. When he opened the package, it turned out to be a copy of Love in the Time of Cholera. Hallie had long noticed how he would always stop to search for this book whenever they passed a bookstore, yet it was never in his home. So she bought it and decided to give it to him as a wedding gift. As Jonathan habitually opened the title page of the book, Sara's name and a string of numbers instantly came into view.
È perfetto. Ottima scelta.
Overjoyed, he rushed out of the hotel and shared the news with Dean. Seeing the message in the book, Dean was utterly dumbfounded. Jonathan's emotions remained deeply unsettled for a long time. They boarded a plane that very night, heading to the city where Sara lived. Yet when he arrived at the destination full of joy, he inadvertently discovered Sara intimately embracing a man inside a room. In that moment, his once burning heart was doused in ice-cold disappointment. What he didn't know was that the girl in the room was actually Sara's twin sister. Sara herself was just boarding a return flight at that very moment. Then, a miracle happened. A flight attendant came by selling headphones, and when Sara reached for her wallet to pay, she was stunned to find she had taken her friend's wallet by mistake. When she used a $5 bill from Eve's wallet to pay, she was shocked to discover it was the very same $5 bill Jonathan had written his address and number on years ago. She hurried off the plane at the very last moment before takeoff. Following the address on the bill, she found Jonathan's current residence. She couldn't help but smile with joy. But fate seemed to enjoy playing tricks. When she arrived, full of expectation, the neighbor told her that today was Jonathan and Hallie's wedding day. Sara felt as if she had been struck by lightning, her world collapsing in that instant. But she didn't give up. She prepared to take a taxi straight to the wedding venue. She didn't want to miss any chance to be with Jonathan. Unfortunately, fate was not on her side. When she arrived, breathless, the wedding had already ended. Sara's heart sank into ice, and tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. She was, once again, a step too late. But just as she was about to leave in despair, the server told her,
"You'll get your present back. You asked if it was over. The truth is, it never even began."
What? He called it off?
Jonathan, after receiving the special gift, had told Hallie the entire story behind the book. He didn't want to waste Hallie's time, nor did he want to give up the love that truly belonged to him. With Hallie's understanding, he had canceled the official wedding scheduled for the next day. When Sara heard this, the emotions she had held back for years finally poured out as tears of joy. On this journey of love, Jonathan had gradually let go of his rationality and learned to trust his instincts and destiny. And Sara, after the test of time, finally admitted that love needed to be actively pursued, not left entirely to fate. When Jonathan was nearly hopeless, he somehow wandered back to the ice rink he could never forget. There, he spotted a leather jacket left behind on a seat. For some reason, this unfamiliar jacket gave him an inexplicable sense of comfort. So he sat with the leather jacket in the very center of the ice rink. As he took out the black glove he always carried and reminisced, snow began to fall out of season, just like on the night they first met. But this time, the person he longed for was not beside him. Perhaps it was divine compassion for their persistence, or perhaps they truly were connected in spirit. Just when he thought he would never see Sara again, a glove floated down from the sky and landed perfectly on him. When he turned around, Sara was there, and that leather jacket was hers, accidentally left behind at the ice rink earlier. They walked slowly toward each other and shared a knowing smile. All the missed chances, the waiting and the searching, found their perfect conclusion in this moment.
I'm John.
I'm Sara.
In this relationship, Sara let go of her obsession with fate and began to face her true feelings. Jonathan also understood that love isn't just about reason and logic. It includes unexplainable attraction and perseverance. When Jonathan and Sara could finally embrace again, it wasn't merely a victory for destiny. It was proof that two hearts had finally met with complete honesty. True destiny, it turned out, was not passive waiting, but finding balance between belief and action. Some people believe in fate, while others choose to create it. But the real miracle is that when you decide to chase it bravely, you may discover that fate has already prepared the answer for you. May everyone who believes in love find that destined person around life's next corner.
Happy anniversary.
When did you get to be so unabashedly romantic?
I think it's good luck. We return each year. Cheers.
Cheers.
We were made for each other.